So my house burnt down. Saying my apartment burnt down is maybe a slight exaggeration. What actually happened was the apartment below me caught fire, my house got severe smoke damage, and I had to be evacuated to the apartment I'm currently in now. But for those who know about Japanese bureaucracy knows that nothing here is really simple, and this took a ridiculously long time, meaning for about a month I didn't have a place to live. Here's me from 2 weeks ago in my old apartment after the fire explaining exactly what happened on the day of the fire. Go for it. So my house almost burnt down on February 1st, making me effectively homeless until we can sort things out and get me into a new place temporarily while they clean my current apartment. You might be thinking, Jordan, why the mask? Well, the apartment below me is still technically a heap of ash, and thus those fumes are coming up to my apartment. Without a mask, being in here for about an hour, you start to feel very sick. Headaches, throat hurty stuff. It's not a good time. So before my lungs fill up with soot and ash, let me quickly tell you about what the hell happened on February 1st to get me in such a strange situation. As I worked from home, there's a weird sounding alarm below me, something similar to this. But of course not as clear since it was coming through the floor. I generally think a fire alarm should be loud enough to wake up you, the neighbors, your ancestors, and everyone else who's connected to you, but apparently Japan doesn't think that way. And this alarm was so quiet that me typing on my computer would drown out the sound. I had to sit very quietly to hear the alarm. And even then, I couldn't really hear the alarm. It sounded like this. Whoop, whoop, ah, yes. Whoop, whoop, ah, yes. So I knew whooping was happening, but I didn't know what for. I decided to ignore the alarm. Then after about a minute of the alarm still going off, I decided this may concern me, and I went to my balcony to check the alarm. On the balcony, the alarm could be heard more clearly. However, not clear enough to know exactly what the whoops were about. I then decided it was time to leave for my front door. And in leaving for my front door, I realized I may be in trouble. Now hearing the alarm very clearly, whoop whoop, fire deaths, I realized there was a fire somewhere. It was only when I turned the corner to my staircase that I see a flurry, a fountain of smoke leaving through the downstairs kitchen exhaust, and I realized there was a fire right below my feet. I did what any sane person would do. I rushed downstairs, I banged on the door to see if anyone was home, and there was indeed no answer. I whipped out my phone and dialed 110. For those who don't know, 110 is the emergency service number in Japan. If you are in a situation, definitely call 110. Let them know where you live, what the address is. I think if you're living in Japan, the one thing you should always know is how to say your address in Japanese and some of the basic things, kaji, tsunami, typhoon, jishin, I don't know. Learn how to say the basic things and also where you live in Japanese. At least then the operators know where to send units, what to send, and what the general danger is going to be once they get there. While on the phone to 110, I ran upstairs to my apartment to grab the essentials, and in opening up my kitchen and seeing it full of smoke, I realized there was indeed a massive raging fire below me. And I need to grab the essentials, a jacket, and get outside because I do not know how long I'm going to be outside for. So of course, I grabbed the essentials, my wallet, my phone, my laptop, and the one thing you always need when leaving your house. That's a copy of Gotcha Force for the GameCube. Do not forget it. This shit is rare. You cannot find this anymore. Once I grabbed the essentials, I left my house and put them on the wall outside my apartment complex. Only then did the guy living in the apartment downstairs return to his apartment. I shoved the phone in his face, and that's when I realized the man was out getting KFC while his apartment was ablaze. As he opened his front door, fire shot out of his apartment straight up to the ceiling, and I realized this fire was no effing joke. I decided people need to evacuate the building, and myself and others around the area were screaming at those who were living in my apartment to get the fuck out because the entire building was on fire. People started swarming out the apartment, and everyone was waiting outside for the fire brigade to arrive. From here, it's boring. I basically sat outside and I waited from about 3:30 to about 6-ish. When we were let back in the apartment, I waited outside and watched the fire brigade basically put out a ridiculously huge fire. It was only once I returned to my apartment about 6 o'clock that I realized that my apartment was kind of fucked. According to the fire brigade, my call came on time, as if my call was a little bit later, my apartment, especially my kitchen, would have been absolutely swallowed by the flames. And looking at this video of the kitchen ceiling of the apartment downstairs, you can see that indeed my apartment may have indeed been swallowed by the flames if I had called somewhat later. This is where things get kind of fucked up. Around 6 p.m, I went back to my apartment and realized this wasn't really a place that anyone could live anymore. There was still a lot of smoke damage to the walls and such. It stunk horribly. All my stuff was, in a sense, kind of ruined. So I grabbed what I could. I grabbed what was salvageable and didn't smell like ash and soot. And I left and I sat outside. I spoke to the fire brigade, I spoke to the landlord, and I also spoke to the housing agency, who said that basically I should stay in a hotel that night. It was clear in coming back the next day, even after leaving all the windows and doors open all night and all day, that the house was not going to magically get any better. Until the house below was cleaned, this house would be terrible, as all the soot and ash was still rising up through the ventilation systems from the downstairs apartment to the upstairs apartment. It was at that moment everyone realized that this house could not be lived in for the foreseeable future. But let's move to a new location. This house is honestly a health and safety risk, and I don't want to be here any longer than I have to be. So, come with me, let's find somewhere else where we can film. And that brings us up to date to today. I've been moved out to this new apartment. We will get into this absolute ridiculous apartment in another video. For the time being, I want to talk about what to do in an emergency situation. I realized, being in my own emergency situation, a lot of people don't know what to do. And living in a foreign country like Japan, you may not have a safety net. You may not have a group of people you can rely on when these things happen. After the fire, I was potentially told by the insurance company and the housing agency that I can just move back in. You can just move back in. I, of course, realized that this isn't really a house someone can live in. And 2.5 weeks later, that was proven to be true, as soot had been streaming into my apartment for the entire time that I wasn't there. And I knew this was a problem because every time I went back to visit my house, there was a set time in which I could be inside before I had to leave, before I had no choice but to leave. And that time was about 45 minutes to an hour. Even with a mask on, 2 masks on, you'd get the worst headaches. You'd start feeling like nauseous being in the house because you are breathing in soot. In that situation, the insurance company, the housing company were basically like, oh yeah, it's a smell. Yeah, it smells a bit, doesn't it? Yeah, that's a minor problem. Basically trying to lower down the seriousness of the problem so I won't be something I had to deal with. Luckily, I'm me. I'm pretty loud. I'm pretty headstrong about the things I want and how I want things to go. And in this situation, it was honestly a lifesaver. Talking to some friends, talking to some people who live in Japan, a lot of them were saying that they do get swept up in the momentum of Japan, especially when you don't speak the language. You don't know what your rights are sometimes. In talking to the housing agency, in the end, they basically said I have 3 options. Option 1 was wait. Basically just stay in the apartment and wait there. Option 2 was fuck you, move out. That was it. It was literally fuck you, move out. Moving house is incredibly expensive in Japan, even if you follow my tips in that video. So I was asking, like, who's gonna eat these costs? Who's gonna swallow these costs of moving house? And like, well, you are. You have to pay it. The treatment was very much like I was the one that started the fire. Option 3 was basically wait, but in like cool italics. It was like, hey, wait, ooh, wait. The options weren't great, and the more I would call, I would be fighting, I'd be arguing, but generally as a tenant, you feel very, very powerless. And when it comes to the person who made the fire, the person who started the fire, there's gonna be a lot of comments like, why don't you just sue him? You can sue him. Why don't you start a lawsuit? You actually can't. I have no legal grounds to sue him. The fire was caused by him throwing a lit cigarette into his garbage, which then caught fire as he was going to KFC. The apartment is very much a non-smoking apartment. You are not allowed to smoke in the apartment. By doing that, he voided his insurance claim. So I can't sue him for his insurance claim because he didn't have any. And I can't sue him for his money because he probably doesn't have any. My old apartment was very affordable. No one who lives there is going to have money to fight a lawsuit. So it is what it is. My landlord was really cool. He's a really nice guy. And because of that, he managed to get me in this apartment. And things went a lot quicker because my landlord has pull at the agency. He's an owner. He's not a shit tenant. He actually owns property that the housing company makes money off. So him saying, hey, let's get this guy a hotel has a lot more weight than me going, can I have a hotel? It means nothing coming from me, but a lot more coming from him. So in this situation, honestly, the landlord is a saint. I expect no slander towards this man. The man is an absolute saint. Without him, I honestly would be completely fucked. He was the only driving force keeping the housing agency at bay. It was absolutely insane. Like, honestly, I really do have nothing but thanks for this man, honestly. Let's talk about insurance. So insurance is called Kasai Hoken. And in my housing video, I briefly discussed Kasai Hoken and the fact that you need it to rent an apartment or to buy a house or an apartment or whatever in Japan. Kasai Hoken sort of translates to fire insurance, but in actual fact, Kasai Hoken actually covers most of your apartment from water damage, fire damage, flood damage, earthquake damage. It is basically a catch-all for insurance. You would think that having this insurance would protect your house, protect your dwelling from fire damage, smoke damage, earthquake damage, flood damage, and you'd be wrong. Kasai Hoken only actually insures the base of the apartment, so the apartment, the room, the appliances, your furniture, clothing, and you're thinking, that's quite a lot, that's pretty good. So in a situation where a fire happens, smoke rushes into an apartment, all my stuff gets soot and or smoke damage, I can claim. Get all my stuff professionally clean. No. The rule in Japan is, if there is not visible damage, the chance of them accepting your claim is so low if your stuff isn't visibly damaged. That is absolutely insane. I had a very irritating man come to my apartment, and he was the claim checker. And in coming to my apartment, he whisked around and basically said, well, there's no visible damage, so there's perhaps nothing we can do. Everything in my apartment was disgusting. There was a thin layer, like a thin layer of soot over everything I owned. So pretty much everything had to be washed, everything had to be cleaned, everything had to be tidied up, put away. But even that, because when you take a photo of the thing and you show it to someone, no one can visibly see the damage. Well, baby, that damage ain't there. That damage doesn't exist, according to Japanese insurance. While Kasai Hoken does seemingly cover a lot of things, there are still certain things it does not cover. But it doesn't really openly tell you it doesn't cover these things. You have to really look into it to find out, what the hell your insurance is actually covering. The one that you normally sign, the base Kasai Hoken contract you sign moving into an apartment in Japan, there are 5 things it does not cover. Fire and building collapses caused by earthquakes, doesn't cover it. Need earthquake insurance for that, apparently. Fires caused by volcanic eruptions. So sorry, anyone living near Mount Fuji, you're fucked if that thing goes off. Damages caused by a tsunami resulting from an earthquake, which is crazy. That's most tsunamis. Aren't most tsunamis caused by earthquakes? Like deep sea earthquakes cause a tsunami? So it's basically saying you don't insure tsunamis. Damages caused to buildings by war, conflict, riots and such. And then loss or damages caused by tsunamis. Just in case they weren't clear about the tsunami thing, they put it in twice. If you do want everything covered, you have to not only get the Kasai Hoken, but also the Jishin Hoken. You basically need both of these insurances to completely cover yourself while living in Japan. But even with both of these insurances, damages from riots and wars and conflicts just aren't covered. Let's go back to just sue the dude. While I would love to just sue the dude, one, I don't have the time, the effort, the energy, or the money to just sue the dude. Also in Japan, you cannot just sue the person that started the fire. Because traditionally, a lot of Japanese buildings are made of wood, fires would happen quite often. Now, a fire starting in house A could very quickly spread to house G. And because of this, all the houses along the way would technically want to sue the person at house A who started the fire. Now, can they afford all these claims? No, of course not. It's insane. So because of this, they made it so every single person has to have their own insurance policy. And when a fire happens, regardless if person A, B, C, D, or E started the fire, you have to claim via your own insurance company. It's very difficult. The advice I would give to you if you're ever in Japan and you're ever stuck in one of these fire situations is, of course, take photos of everything. You need to have your own evidence. The insurance company's claim checker will come in. While they may be independent arbiters, they don't actually care. Their job is to go to location, snap some photos, bing bam bush, they're out of there. They don't care, honestly. So you have to really point out, hey, this is damaged, that's damaged, there's stuff over here. And even then, even after taking those photos, there's a chance you may not actually get anything at the end of it. And as time goes on, depending on how close you are to the start of the fire, the situation may just get worse. My apartment did. Day one, it was pretty fine. But as time went on, I could not go back into the apartment as there was a thin layer of soot covering everything. Even now, there's stuff that I haven't fully cleaned yet and I can just wipe soot off the thing. It's pretty fucking disgusting. Because of this, you wanna have your own evidence. I get it. Japan is very much like, wow, everyone's friendly here. An old man helped me cross the road. A woman gave me an onigiri. Woo, woo, woo. But a company is a fucking company. Please be careful. Please be wary while living in Japan. Guys, just wanted to give you a quick update about where I've been for the last month. I really apologize. I couldn't update because, you know, fire, had to move house. It was a lot. I've got a video I made about Hanami. That's coming up this week. I'm gonna have a house tour coming out. That'll come out this week as well. Sorry about the wait, but like I said, fire. Anyway, guys, if you like these videos, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you want to see next in Japan. But until then, you know, I'll be recording from this weird new apartment. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. I want to show you exactly what I mean. This is a chopstick I just got from my box of things I haven't washed yet. Let's go both ways. Hold up, there it is. There is the thin layer of soot that is on all my things in my apartment currently. Bye.